April 11th, 1981. Deep in the forests of Northern California, a small vacation resort sat quietly among the pine trees. The place was known as Keddie Resort. It was peaceful, remote, and made up of several wooden cabins. Families could escape the noise of city life. One of those cabins was Cabin 28. Inside lived the Sharp family. What happened inside that cabin would become one of the most terrifying unsolved murder cases in American history. The Keddie Cabin Murders. The cabin was home to Sue Sharp, a single mother who had recently moved there with her 5 children. Life wasn't easy for the family, but the resort was quiet and affordable. It seemed like the perfect place for a fresh start. On the night of April 11th, Sue was home with 3 of her children: her teenage son, John Sharp, her daughter, Tina Sharp, and her youngest son, Rick. Also staying the night was John's friend, Dana Wingate. 3 other children from the family were sleeping in the next room. Sometime late that night, someone entered Cabin 28. What happened next was so violent that investigators would describe the scene as truly brutal. Inside the living room, Sue Sharp, John Sharp, and Dana Wingate were attacked. The killer used multiple weapons: a hammer, a knife, and rope. The victims were beaten and tied up. But the attack didn't stop there. The killer continued the assault with extreme brutality. In the bedroom next door, 3 young children were sleeping, and somehow they slept through the entire attack. They heard nothing, not the struggle, not the screams. When they woke up the next morning, they walked into the living room and saw a scene of horror. Police discovered Sue Sharp, John Sharp, and Dana Wingate, all murdered. The room showed signs of a violent struggle, but one person was missing: Sue's daughter, Tina. Tina Sharp had vanished. There were no signs she had been killed inside the cabin. The killer had taken her. A massive search began across the forests of Plumas County. For weeks, investigators searched the wilderness, but Tina was nowhere to be found. It wasn't until 3 years later that a shocking discovery was made. In 1984, a man discovered something horrifying: a human skull. It was identified as Tina Sharp. Her remains were found nearly 50 miles away from Cabin 28. She had been abducted and murdered. Strange details emerged. A bloody knife and hammer were found at the scene, but they didn't belong to the Sharp family. Investigators found a confession letter mailed to a local newspaper shortly after the murders. It contained details only the killer would know. Yet the case still went cold. Suspects were identified, men known to the family. But for decades, the evidence was mishandled. Many believe the murders could have been solved, but mistakes allowed the killer to escape. Some think the killer knew the layout of the cabin, which makes the story even darker. The killer may not have been a stranger at all. Today, Cabin 28 is gone, demolished in 2004. But the mystery still haunts the area. Residents still talk about it. One question remains: who walked into that quiet cabin in 1981 and left behind such brutality before disappearing into the darkness without ever being caught?